Hi, have you been going for a number of interviews but not been successful in terms of getting the job post-interview? In this video, I'm going to tell you 5 mistakes I've made in the past that I think didn't make me get the job. So hopefully this is something you're interested in. So if it is, stick around. My name's Sabrina Phillips. I give you the tips on this channel to skyrocket your career so that we can be bold and brave together. And I'm currently a Band 9 nurse, so I've been on both sides of the table in terms of interviews. So I've seen it and I've done it. And in this video, I'm giving you the 5 mistakes I've made. So hopefully you don't make them in future interviews. So the first one is not contacting the employer when I've gone for a job. I remember when I was moving from a Band 6 to Band 7 role, I'd applied for this job and just put in the application, did get shortlisted. So obviously I did something right with the application, but hadn't contacted the employer, didn't even know where the place was. So it was a surprise when I got on the train and it was in a very remote area. So I didn't even work out how I was going to get to work. But thirdly, because I hadn't spoken to them about the job, there were some questions in there that I hadn't prepared for. So that goes into the first bit. So definitely contact the employer, definitely understand where you're going to be working, how you're going to get there, because I think by not doing that, it led to the second point, which is that I did not prepare for interviews. And that wasn't the first one I hadn't prepared for. And there's been others since then that I hadn't prepared for, but it really did show. And I remember one question I got asked, and now I just laugh at myself really, but I was asked about supervision and the different types of supervision, and I just couldn't for the life of me think about the different forms of supervision, because now I can roll off that there's professional supervision, managerial supervision, and how I do that. But because I hadn't done my research and prep about what the job entailed and the different areas that I need to think about, I got stumped. But there's the other flip side of over preparing to the point where I was just giving too much information. And now when I think back on it, I don't think the people who were interviewing me can make head or tail of what I was saying, because I couldn't either, because I was literally just verbal diarrheaing back to them. So second mistake is not preparing, and also the flip side is over preparing. And a tip to that is, in terms of preparation, check the job description. If you do contact the employer, ask about what some of the challenges are, what are they looking to have implemented in the next 6 months to a year, what their ideal candidate would look like. That's quite helpful. Also, now I know it's really good to look at board reports, board papers, because you can see where there might be challenges within the wider trust, but also in the department that you're working in. But also don't take on too much information. What you need is just to take enough that's relevant to the job that you're going for. And by looking at the job description, that would help you. Mistake 3. And I think I alluded to that in mistake 2, is I did not have a clear structure for how I would respond to questions. Who'd have thought there was a way of structuring your responses? I've learned that now, but back then I was just throwing in everything. It was the kitchen sink, the bathroom. You ask me one question, I'll be rambling on 5-10 minutes later. So I would suggest having a structure for answering questions, but also there's different forms of questionings that you will get in an interview. And if that's something that you're interested in, do let me know in the chat or comment, because I could do a separate video on the different forms of questioning and how you might want to approach them. But because I'm going to give you a tip here, the one that I used recently, and my coach taught me how to use it, was the CAR structure: context, action, results. And again, if you want me to expand on what that means in practice, do let me know and I'll add that to the video. 4th mistake is not answering the question for everybody on the panel. And you might be like, what do you mean? What I learned in around any given table, you will have people who like qualitative stuff and people who like things that are quantitative. So quantitative stuff would be people who wants to know a bit of data, who wants to know the results. People qualitative would want to know how the impact you had on staff, service users, etc. So people that you need to think about in that interview, and there's others as well. And again, I can do a video on that for you because it can help in other areas of your life. So if you've got to chair meetings or set up meeting structures or even papers, it helps to think about what you might want to put first and last so that you get what you need out of it. But it's similar for interviews as well. So you have to make sure that you're catering for everybody on that panel. And that's why the car that I told you about in mistake 3 is really good. And the 5th one is, and I've only realised this more and more recently because I still slip into it. And part of it, research shows, is because I'm a woman, and part of it is because it's the way I am. It is not saying I did X in interviews. Instead, I'll use we did. As a team, we did. And by not saying I, what you're not doing is giving the interviewer categorically an understanding of what you have done to have an outcome, but also what you're going to do when you come into this role, because they want to see really clearly that you understand what you need to do. So where you might say we in an interview, and I'm not saying to be dishonest, but think about the question that you're being asked, think about the example that you're giving, and think about what your role was in whatever outcome you had as a team, and say, I did this was the outcome. So those are my 5 mistakes that I hope you don't make in interviews, and some tips on how you can hopefully change those around so that you're successful. I hope you enjoyed that. Please let me know, like, subscribe and all that lovely things, and I'll see you in the next one. Let's be bold and brave together.